Hey guys, it's Christine Garvin, and welcome to the final day of the 2019 Hormone Summit. I hope that you've had as amazing of a time as I had in putting it together. I really can't even thank the women that were part of this enough, these hormonal experts from all over the world. Such incredible information, such incredible knowledge. I knew all of them beforehand in terms of, following some of them, learning from them. And now I feel like I have just made this deep connection with all of them. And they're such incredible, incredible women. And I just know that you experience that too in the interviews. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to them all, you can go back and listen to them. They're in podcast form on Anchor FM. And actually starting next week, you're going to be able to access the videos whenever you want. And we're going to have my cat Gracie. He actually, I don't think has made an appearance yet, which is kind of surprising. So he may come in and out in this final interview with me. With myself. So I hope that you followed the women that I've talked to this week that have been part of the summit, and hopefully you're reaching out to them because they have much more to teach you and for you to learn from them. But today in this final interview, I decided that I was going to talk about estrogen dominance. So to scale back a little bit, we've talked, I think, a bit this week about estrogen dominance, but I just want to talk to you about the reason that it's played such a role in my life and kind of brought me to where I am today. So I would say most of you by now probably know that I had a fibroid, a relatively large fibroid. It was, I think, 6 centimeters when we discovered it, or when I got it checked out. I discovered it myself, and it was about 8 centimeters by the time I got it removed. And that was probably about 3 or 4 months after I found it. So it actually grew quite a bit in a short amount of time. And I knew, obviously, that my hormones were off to have that happen, but I didn't quite understand what was going on. And at that point, it was causing me to bleed profusely during my periods, to the extent that it made me pretty anemic. And it also, this is a joke with some of the women that I taught dance to, that I was growing a tail because it was actually pushing out my coccyx bone. So I couldn't, even when I sat, it was kind of painful sometimes, but definitely when I did any kind of exercise, on a yoga mat, using the backside of my body. So, I kind of jumped into like, okay, I got to get this thing removed, because in all of the research that I did, people said, yeah, it's really hard to shrink them. And once they get past a certain size, you can't really shrink them. And so I just was like, okay, so I will do this surgery called a laparoscopic myomectomy. And that is where they just make tiny little incisions and go in, and they actually cut up the fibroid and then put it in a bag to protect you in case it actually is cancerous, which it's cancerous less than 1% of the time, but they don't know until they pull it out. And so they put it in this bag to protect you and pull it out. It's pretty amazing to me still to this day how they pull out this balloon full of fibroid from those little incisions, but nonetheless, that's what they do. And, it's supposed to be a pretty simple surgery, downtime of about 2 weeks. So very quickly after my surgery and coming back home from the surgery, I wasn't feeling well, but I just assumed that, I just had surgery, and not everybody bounces back as fast as they say you will. And so the swelling started going down a little bit after like 3 days. And so I thought I was on the uptick, but I could barely get out of bed. My mom was staying with me, and I tried to walk every day with her around my apartment complex, but I could barely get from sort of like part that I live in to the other end where the mail was. I couldn't even make it there. And instead of getting better over the next, it was 2 weeks in all, instead of getting better, I was getting worse. and I was getting nauseous off of water. I would have to get up 4 times a night to take a shower because I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep. And the only thing that would help ease my pain at all was to take a really hot shower. So I had my mom giving me massages back here constantly to try and bring down the pain. And then finally, and I still cry sometimes talking about it, I knew I had an infection because one of the incisions raised on my stomach finally, thank God, because that was the deciding factor, that I knew that I had an infection. And so I was up all night one night. I could not sleep at all, no matter how much I tried. And finally in the morning, I said to my mom that, I needed to go to, there's a clinic right down the street from me. I said, we'll go in there, get some antibiotics, and I'll start feeling better. And I just didn't want to take antibiotics, but I knew I had to. So we went in there, and luckily the doctor saw me, because at first he didn't want to. He wanted me to go to urgent care. But he saw me, and he basically took one look at me and could tell that I was septic. So what that meant for me was that my abdomen was actually full of stool and bacteria and fluids and everything. And your body, tries to fight that. And then it gets to this point where it can't really fight it anymore. And so sepsis sets in. And luckily he could tell that that was happening for me. So he sent me directly to the ER. And over time, we found out that I had 3 burns from the original surgery in both my colon and in my small intestine. So all of that is to say that surgery is never an easy choice, right? I think it's put out to us. And I think I know I thought it was going in because they were like, oh yeah, it's going to get rid of this thing really easily with these tiny little cuts, and you'll be back to yourself in 2 weeks. And we forget that there are complications that happen often with surgery. What happened to me was extreme for sure, but women do actually get nicked in their intestines during gynecological surgeries a lot more than is being talked about. And so my mission in, post healing from all of that, first of all, was, hey, I don't ever want a friggin' massive fibroid like that again and have to make a decision around surgery, because obviously I'm not going to go the surgical route. And I don't want to deal with the pain that I know that fibroids can cause. But also, it's not that simple. Like, there is a reason for these fibroids, not just this like, well, it just happens as women age. And the reality is 80% of women will end up having a fibroid by the time that they're 50. And that is sometimes quoted as 90% for Black women. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of women that have fibroids that we're just, throwing our hands up in the air and being like, oh, well, it's just what it is. And, some women will never know that they have it because it doesn't grow large enough, to cause any issues, or it depends on where it grows too. That's actually, it's almost more where it grows sometimes rather than size. There's different kinds of fibroids that I'll talk about in a later presentation. But anyways, there's a reason for it. And there's something that we can do to fight them off. There's something that we can do to, in some cases, shrink them. There's definitely a lot we can do to take away the pain that they cause, even if we can't shrink them. And I've learned so much about this over this past year. And so I'm here to talk to you about some of the basics of that today. And the thing about it is, and I'm going to be looking at my notes at different points, just FYI, because I want to make sure I cover all the good stuff. The thing about it is, it's not just fibroids, it's ovarian cysts, which are super common. And again, doctors are like, well, they're not, usually as bad of an issue because the body often reabsorbs cysts. They just, can come with ovulation. Sometimes it takes longer to absorb. Sometimes, though, they burst, and that is not a fun situation for women at all. I've been with a couple of friends and clients when that has happened, and that is not anything anybody wants to experience. And, you know, other things that start to happen too, like the breast tenderness, the sleeplessness, the anxiety that creeps up. There's so many different things that women start to experience, you know, beyond the kind of traditional PMS symptoms of um, mood swings and cramping and that kind of thing. And, you know, a lot of this starts to happen as women head towards perimenopause. But perimenopause, as you learned, you know, with Dr. Garrett, is this time that's like, I don't know, it's not really specific. And it's something that hasn't really been talked about much. We've talked about menopause, but really the shit happens in perimenopause. And it can start hitting women as early as their mid-30s. And the reality is there's women that are having the symptoms of perimenopause even earlier. So today I want to talk to you about the why that this thing called estrogen dominance, which is what connects all of these things, why this is happening, and then what you can do about it. And I actually want to show you my recent Dutch test. I just got it a couple weeks ago, and show you about how you can really figure out what's going on in your body hormonally, so that you can figure out what to do. And there's a lot of options at our disposal in order to really deal with this stuff. And our doctors aren't telling us that for the most part. There's some that are. But anyways, I won't go off on that tangent. So we've talked a little bit about what, you know, perimenopause can start to look like and these other times, right, that you're starting to have these symptoms. And a lot of it really has to do, it will happen in the second half of your cycle, the luteal phase, when, you know, your progesterone is supposed to be up and your estrogen is supposed to not be quite as high, but a lot of times it's going the opposite way. And naturally, as we age, our progesterone starts lowering. It's just part of the fun of heading into perimenopause. So you have that, you know, situation going on. But why is our estrogen getting higher? Like, why is this such an issue? So it's hard to know where to start, but I'm going to start with xenoestrogens, because those are impacting us so incredibly much, and we don't really like think about it a lot of times. It's the chemicals that are, you know, in our hair care products, in the makeup we put on our face, in our lotions, you know, in our, I mean, everything, like everything that we use on our bodies, pretty much. If you go with any kind of normal product like that, it's going to have chemicals in it that are xenoestrogens. It's in the products that we use to clean our homes. It is in our food. It is in the plastic that holds our food, you know, that we buy. Like, you know, I love my Trader Joe's stuff, but like lots of it comes in plastic. It, you know, it's in the bags that we carry our stuff out of the grocery store. I mean, it's all over the place. And what a xenoestrogen is it's a chemical that acts like an estrogen in our body. It attaches to estrogen receptors in our body. So that just right there can cause your estrogen levels to go up, because you have your regular estrogen, you know, you have what's going on with your food, and you have these like extra estrogens that are coming in. And the thing about estrogen is your body has to detoxify estrogen, excess estrogen. And that's something that's kind of long and complicated. I'm not going to go into right now, but just know that your liver has to do that. Thing is, it gets moved to the back of the line when your liver's like, all right, I got alcohol coming at me, I got caffeine coming at me, I got, you know, all of, like, I've got over-the-counter medications, prescription medications, all of these things that most of us, you know, on a daily basis are having go in our bodies. Your liver's got to deal with that first, right? So your estrogen goes push back to the back of the line, and sometimes your liver doesn't have enough to get to that, right? And so then your estrogen has a chance to recirculate. So we know that liver health is really important when it comes to detoxing estrogen, getting extra estrogen out of your body. Cutting down on the chemicals that are in your environment. And I know it's hard. I mean, our water, you can't drink tap water. There's all kinds of heavy metals and xenoestrogens in there. Taking showers, taking baths in this water. I mean, we're getting it all over the place, right? So you've got your xenoestrogens, you've got your liver health. Third, you've got your gut health. And really, this is the place you want to start. I'm saying it third, but it's the place you got to start. Because majority of us have some shit going on with our gut. It's just the reality. If you have gas and bloating, you have shit going on with your gut. I hate to tell you. It's common, but it's not normal. And so the thing is, if you are not digesting things properly and your bowels are in a state of dysbiosis, right? Particularly your colon, let's talk about your colon, but also your small intestine plays a big role in this too. And if you have something like SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, that's going to cause issues. But think about your colon. So there's an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. I always have trouble saying that. Beta glucuronidase. And it actually is really important in terms of getting that estrogen out of your body. So you have to have just the right amount of beta glucuronidase in order to have things work properly, right? If it's too high, it unfortunately will undo what your liver did to detoxify that estrogen. And it's kind of complicated. Conjugation happens, whatever. It becomes unconjugated, and the estrogen has a chance to go back into your body and recycle in your system. And there you go again, having your high estrogen happening. So it's really important to get that gut in gear, and why, it's really a top-down thing. And I'll give you some hints at the end of this of what you can do to help out and good places to start in terms of that. So we've talked about xenoestrogens, we've talked about liver issues, and we've talked about gut health. And, Nicole mentioned that earlier this week, how important it is to start with your gut before you work on your hormones, because everything in your gut is going to affect your hormones. If your gut isn't working right, you're not absorbing nutrients properly, and that hormones need particular nutrients. Your liver needs particular nutrients in order to work properly. So you gotta start with the gut. So let me check out my notes here, make sure I'm covering everything. Other things, birth control, which birth control pills, and other forms of birth control, hormonal birth control. It affects our estrogen, which is the part going back to the beta glucuronidase. I'm gonna really be able to say that word one day. That is the part of your microbiome that detoxes your estrogen. And so when you take birth control pills, it impacts your estrogen. We know that. There's studies that show that. So you've got your birth control, you've got other medications that definitely can impact your estrogen levels. Again, also hurting it can be really tough on your liver, and your liver is dealing with detoxing those first. So take all that, take the aging that happens where our progesterone levels just start naturally, going down. And then you have this crazy, wonderful thing, not really wonderful thing, this crazy thing called estrogen dominance. And there's some people that don't want to call it that these days, but we're just going to stick with that for ease's sake. You can have normal estrogen and have too low of progesterone, and that's still considered estrogen dominance. So it's not exactly just like, oh, your estrogen's high. There's different things that can constitute estrogen dominance. For the sake of ease today, we're just going to stick with that term. So I wanted to share with you, just really quickly as much as possible, this test that I did, which we've talked about a lot this week, called the Dutch. And you're going to see why it is kind of like the creme de la creme of hormone testing. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. This is so exciting. It's the first time I've done this. Let's see if that works. Okay, share. Yes, it worked, I believe. Okay, so we are going to move things around so that I can show you everything. Okay, so this is a Dutch test. Let's not show all of my information, but you can see that it's mine. And what it does at the top is show you, right here is your estradiol, and here is your progesterone, and here's your testosterone. So your estradiol is your most used estrogen when you are premenopause. So in your menstruating years, estradiol is the main estrogen that you're using. So you can see on my test here, right off the bat, I have high estradiol, because see how that little thing is red, that little pointer right there. And we really want the outcome to be in between these two stars, okay? And you can see that green line. So here, my progesterone, the green arrow, is inside these two stars. I'm doing pretty good, actually, on progesterone, which was a surprise to me, I will be honest with you. And then my testosterone is also in between the two stars here with the green arrow pointing, and that's just about, yeah, halfway. So that's doing pretty well. Here it goes into DHEA production, which we're not going to talk about today, but is also really important. And then we're talking about cortisol here. And you can see my 24-hour free cortisol is on the higher end. It's not out of control yet, but it's on the higher end, versus my metabolized cortisol is pretty much towards the middle here. And I'll tell you a little bit more about cortisol here in a minute, but I want to focus more on the estrogen and progesterone. So the thing that's really cool and really important about the Dutch test, and one of the main reasons I wanted to take it versus like a blood test, which will not give you this information, is that it's showing you the breakdown. So this is your phase 1 liver detox. Remember, I was just talking about how important liver detox is. So your liver technically has 2 phases of detox. Sometimes you'll hear about phase 3 detox, and that is what takes place in your gut and your colon, what we were talking about earlier with the estrobolome. So this test isn't going to show you that, but we've got our 3 estrogens here: the estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And as I mentioned before, the estradiol is on the high end. The other ones are within range. My estriol is a little on the lower side. But you'll see here that estrone, what it does is this is showing you the pathways that it's metabolized down, right? And what you really, really want is for this estrogen to be going down this protective 2OH pathway. You don't want it going down so much this 4OH pathway, right? Because this is the more cancerous. It's connected more to cancer, is just kind of the basic way of saying it. And then you've got your 16OH over here, which is considered the more proliferative pathway. And proliferative can be good or bad. It can, estrogen is very important for bone growth, so that can be good in that sense. But it's not very fun for fibroids and cysts and everything. And so that pathway you want to keep relatively low. So if you look at my numbers, you can see my 2OH is low. The arrow here is underneath that gold star, and I'm at 3.66. And then, unfortunately, my 4OH is on the higher end. It's not quite out of range, but it's heading in that direction. My 16OH is not bad at 1.02. Probably come down a little bit, and that would be great. I was surprised my 16OH was not higher because of the previous fibroid and cyst growth. So now I know from this test that I'm going down this 4OH pathway, which I do not want to be going down. I want to be going down this 2OH pathway, having as much go down as necessary. And so there are specific supplements that I'm not going to get into today, but to make that happen. And the thing is, you don't want to take those supplements if you don't know this information, right? You want to know which pathway the estrogen is going down. So that's our phase 1. And then it goes over here to phase 2. This COMT is all about this phase 2 liver detox. And so you can see that my phase 2, the 2-methoxy, is not too bad. I could bring it up a little bit. It would be nice to bring it up, about halfway. And so my phase 2 liver detox is not doing badly, but it can do better. My methylation activity is high, though, which we think that when this 2OH goes up, that will come down. So If my methylation was low, that would mean that I was a slow metabolizer. And so that would mean my phase 2 detox was sluggish. So that ends up happening for a lot of people. And that's also useful information on specific supplementation that you can do to upregulate that phase 2 detox. So up here, we've got the progesterone and the metabolites. This is also something I'm not going to talk about today, but it is important to see that I'm going more down this 5A pathway. And then the DHEAS is on the lower end of the spectrum, but my testosterone is normal. And this indicates a little bit of inflammation that's going on in my system. So that's really important for me to know too. Other things are important here. We're not going to tap into those today too, because this would be a forever interview with myself, and we don't want to have that happen. The other really important thing that I just want to point here that I love about this test, and we talked a little bit about in some of the interviews this week, how important cortisol is when it comes to sex hormones. Like if your cortisol is out of control, then you're gonna probably have an estrogen dominant situation. And lo and behold, if you look over to the right-hand side here, my afternoon free cortisol, and that's what your body, uses, is high. And it's even on the higher end, and my cortisone, which is stored over here, but it's definitely high over here in my free cortisol. And that is very fascinating to me, because I would have thought that I had low cortisol, because that is when I am the most tired during the day. And so you can see that symptoms can happen on either extreme. It can be actually the same symptoms, whether you're low cortisol or high cortisol. It can also be same symptoms if you're low estrogen or high estrogen at times too. So that's why this test is so, so important. And now I have a specific plan of action. I'm going to stop the share in order to help balance out my hormones even more. I've been working hard on it for sure, but I needed to know what my estrogen was doing. And that is something that I think everybody that has any kind of fibroid growth, ovarian cyst growth, a lot of those symptoms of breast tenderness, anxiety, sleeplessness, all those things, it's really important to know what's going on with your hormones so that you can make those shifts, and you don't necessarily need to choose surgery right off the bat if you have some of these things happening that can come from extra estrogen. So, okay, so we've covered some basics. I know that was super fast, the Dutch test. It's much more in depth. When I work with clients one-on-one, we go much more in depth into that. And then there's also other opportunities for going more in depth. But I want to actually get to what you can do, right? Because that's what everybody wants to know. Like, well, okay, so what can I do? Well, it is the magic question, and there's never a simple answer, because it really does depend on what's going on in your body. That's why his testing is so important. But gut. Go back to your gut. I mean, no matter what, I always start with that with clients, because if your hormones are off, your gut is off. And, one of the most common things is hypochlorhydria, which is low stomach acid or low HCl. And in a program that I'm in right now, it was quoted as 90% of us have hypochlorhydria. And as we age, we just naturally produce less hydrochloric acid, HCl. And so the thing about that is, if you don't produce that, then it kind of breaks down the whole system. So hydrochloric acid is released in your stomach. And in order for the food to move into your small intestine, your HCl actually needs to be at a certain level to be able to break that food down. It's signal to open up to go into your small intestine. And so I won't go into all of the things around that, that it impacts in terms of acid reflux and all these kinds of things. That's for another day. But just know that hydrochloric acid is really important. Most of us are low on it. You can test yourself with getting some hydrochloric acid and do small amounts and see where you, what place you get to before it starts burning. It's a great thing to try. And it's really an inexpensive way to start kickstarting your entire digestive system. If you have gas, as I mentioned earlier, if you have bloating, if you have sluggish bowels, one of the first places that you want to look at is hydrochloric acid. Also, huge fan of digestive enzymes. If your hydrochloric acid isn't working well, then your body's not triggered in order to release all the enzymes that it needs to break the food down. So often it goes hand in hand. And if you supplement with one, you want to supplement with the other for a little while. Try those out, see if that helps you out. What's going to happen is you're going to start digesting this food better, and you're A, kinder to your stomach, but B, you're also going to allow the gut lining to start healing, because almost everyone has some level of leaky gut. If you have food intolerances, if you have environmental allergies, you have leaky gut. Hate break it to you. So that means that things are getting through your gut into your blood, and it's your body's creating an immune response to that, because that's not supposed to be there, right? And so you want to start to be able to heal that leaky gut. And there's things like L-glutamine that can help that. But you have to be breaking your food down first, get those particles as small as possible so that it can't keep going through. And you also want to stay away from foods that you have an intolerance to, because it's just going to keep perpetuating that leaky gut. Okay, so those are good places to start with your gut. Second, actually, one more thing on your gut. Really important, going back to the beta-glucuronidase, and look, I said it right that time. You really, really want to be taking a quality probiotic. But I really recommend to people, before they do that, find out what is going on in your gut. A lot of us have some fungal issue, candida, or some errant bacteria that's not supposed to be there, or parasites. Most of us have something like that happening. And a test like the GI map is really it's the latest and greatest in terms of stool analysis. And it's going to tell you these things that you have. And it's so important in order to know you got to get rid of those things, because they are sucking you dry and they are not helping your digestion at all. Once you figure that out, take some good quality probiotics. And research is telling us that spore-based probiotics are actually the best in most situations, because they help to re-inoculate our colon. So I've been a big proponent of that for myself since my surgeries, because I lost 40% of my colon and my small intestine was restapled to my colon. And so I, A, didn't use that colon that was there for about 6 months. And then B, just, that trauma, it really throws off your microbiome. So I'm a big fan of those. So that's your gut. Second, you got to work on stress. So we talked about cortisol. I showed you how my cortisol looked in the Dutch. The reason that we even look at cortisol is because it impacts these sex hormones so much on so many different levels. And so if you don't bring down stress in your life, like none of the rest of it's going to matter. You can take all the supplements in the world. You can, eat the perfect diet, quote unquote, perfect diet, and it's still not going to change things. You really have to, lifestyle is hugely impactful to our hormones, and you have got to be able to regulate your adrenals and regulate your cortisol output. There's just no way around it, ladies. And so, it can be anything from yoga, meditation, naps. Make sure you get to bed earlier than you are. Cut down on your computer time and your phone time and your TV time at night. I know it's hard because you want to just check out after your hard day, but it really is throwing everything off. Melatonin production, all of that, and that's part of the hormonal cascade. It's really important. So stress, adaptogenic herbs are pretty necessary for a lot of my clients. So I do recommend those, or something like cortisol manager. One thing that, I often start clients off on to just see if it will help regulate their hormones after all these other things I've just said, so don't think this one thing is going to do it for you, is Vitex or chasteberry. And so, it's an herb that actually works on your pituitary gland, which is kind of the epicenter of your sex hormones. And so it can sometimes pretty miraculously help within a couple months, but not all the time. And it doesn't work for everybody. So, but that's something that you can try. And if that doesn't work, it's on to the Dutch testing is what I really, really recommend. So I know we've gone over a lot in a little bit of time, and I know it's hard to keep all of this kind of stuff straight, right? And the reality is when you work with someone, this all goes so much faster. When you work with somebody that knows what they're doing, they can really look at your symptoms, look at your testing and say, okay, this is what we got to do. And the other aspect, of this is like, all of this is big changes, right? It's huge changes. And I know I've been through a lot of that myself. And when I'm with a group of people going through changes and having that support, it's completely different than when I try and do it on my own. And so how do you get both, the expert that can help you in determining what's going on and having a plan of action, and then also have the support of other people going through that? Well, that is a big question. And I'm going to wait for just a couple minutes, and then I've got a little bit of an announcement for you. So stay tuned. And the big announcement is I've got a brand new program for you. I'm so excited about this. I even got dressed up because it really is so important to me and so worth it to me. This program is a culmination of the last 2 years of my life. Everything that I've learned through personal experience, everything that I've learned being in multiple groups of women who are facing similar issues, all of the professional experience that I've gained, and all the programs that I've taken in order to help you get your hormones right. So there was nothing else I could call it other than get your hormones right, because that's really what we're shooting for here. So I talk a lot about fibroids because that's what happened to me, but really whether it's fibroids or it's ovarian cysts, amenorrhea, really bad PMS symptoms, headed into perimenopause or already in perimenopause, they all have a similar underlying connection, and that is estrogen dominance, as you just learned in this last session with me. And so I really, there's some basic things that I was able to tell you in the video, but there's a lot more that goes into getting your hormones right. And I want you to be able to go out into the world and do the things you want to do because you feel good, because your body is, working alongside your mind and your soul. Everything is working together so that you can live the life that you want to be living. And if our hormones are dragging us down, making it so we don't have enough energy, making it so that we're bleeding all the time, we have these growths, then we can't do what we're meant to do in this life. And that's just, it's not fair on so many levels. And I know that there is better. I have learned it through my own experience. I have seen it happen with other women. And so I am here to offer this program to help you get to that place if you're not there yet. So the program is 12 weeks. I thought long and hard about how long I should make this program, but 3 months is really the minimum that you want to make changes and see real change happening. It is the trimester, of building this new body. And so during that time, you're really creating a completely different system. You're really healing your gut, you're healing your stress hormones, and you're healing your sex hormones. And we will dive into all of that over the 12 weeks. So healing your hormones really is not just a physical thing, right? It's an emotional thing and it's an energetic thing. We have emotional bodies, we have energetic bodies. And so this program looks at all three of those things. So yeah, we'll be talking dietary changes, of course. That is definitely a huge part of it. We'll be talking supplementation with different herbs and nutrients that are necessary. And what's great in this program is you'll get specific protocols based on the symptoms that you're having. We'll be talking about things that you need to do to detox your body. And we're not talking juice cleanses, and we're not talking, some crazy liver cleanse. It's daily things that you can do that are actually really simple and really wonderful self-care that helps your systems are already, working their best to detoxify you on a daily basis. we're just supporting that so that it can do an even better job. But we're also going to talk about the emotional component, because there's a huge emotional component to estrogen dominance, to fibroids, to cysts, to all of these issues, to our cycle being off. And I really think of it as a way that our body is trying to tell us. It's knocking gently saying, hey, there's some changes that you need to make. There's some things that you need to dive into here and really heal for real in order to shift what is happening in your body. And so we'll definitely, dip deep into the emotional components, and then we're also going to talk about your energy body. So this is something probably a lot of you know about at this point, but it's still not as focused on, but it's just as important as your physical and emotional bodies. So we have an energy system that is, impacting us every day in every way, just like our physical being and our emotional being. And we have to work on supporting that just as much as we do those other two. So you're going to learn about what your energy systems are all about, and then you're going to learn how to help support them, how clear out old energy patterns, help bring in new ones of things that you want to see in your health and in your life. So it's a very comprehensive program. And on top of that, I offer optional testing. So this is something that can be super helpful. One of the first things that we're going to talk about is figuring out your food intolerances, and that is via tracking your diet. But if you want to get real specific real fast, something like the GI map is going to tell you parasites, bacteria, all of those things that I mentioned earlier in this video of what's going on in your gut, and then you can know how to deal with it specifically. There's protocols. So that is a great test. Also the MRT, food intolerances test, because that's going to tell you, you may not realize that you're having inflammatory reactions to certain foods, and this test is going to tell you that. So you have the option, that's an additional cost, but that's an option to do either of those tests so that you can really hop in and do that healing on that gut. And then also, I am going to encourage you to do a Dutch test. You can see by now that I'm a big fan of this, and it can really change the course of your hormonal life. So I'm really going to encourage you to do that. And you have the option of having me read that. That's also an additional cost. But you can also work with other women that are in the group to figure out some of that stuff. And I will dive more into how to read that Dutch test. So the other great thing is we're going to have a bunch of experts on tap. So I don't know everything, and I'm constantly learning from other people. And so I think it's really important to bring hormone experts, like I did this whole week, to you so that you can ask the questions of what's going on, because there's so many different aspects of it, of your hormones, that having the feedback from people that focus on different areas it's super impactful. I know it's changed my life in this past studies that I've done this year. So definitely going to be part of the program. Every other week we'll have a hormonal expert, and then the weeks in between we'll have a Q&A with me, so you can ask me what is happening with different scenarios and what situations, and what's working and what's not working, all those kinds of things. And we'll also have group support 24 hours a day through a Facebook group, and I highly encourage, there's so much learning. Kitty has the group, the Estrogen Dominant Support Group, and I can't tell you how much I've learned from that, because women put on there, hey, this is what's going on with me, or what should I do? This is not feeling right, or this is feeling amazing. And you can learn so much from that and really make some massive changes. So that will be a big component of the program too. I'll also be giving out some, special prizes along the way as I challenge you to take on some of the new things that are going to help shift, new types of ways of taking care of your body, ways of taking care of your mind, and ways of taking care of your energy and spirit. So that's just a quick overview. There's so much more that's involved, but I'm going to point you towards clicking over here and reading through. And the thing about it is that I've been so appreciative of you being with me this week on my first Hormone Summit. It's just been an amazing experience. And you're the first ones that know about this program, because I was like, I have to share it with you guys first. And to me, you being along on this ride has meant so much that I am ready to basically get you involved in this 12-week program. So normally the cost of this program is going to be $12.99 because it's a very comprehensive program and brings in so many different experts and so much information that you can really use this program for the rest of your life. You can come back to it again and again, and you always have access to it. $12.99 is going to be the cost, but because you've been with me this week and have connected with me and connected with the hormone experts, I am offering it to you and only you for $299 for the entire program, for the entire 12 weeks. So think about that. Price is not going to last long. So $299, because that is $1,000 off the original price. It's only going to be for 1 week. So you have 1 week to decide, do I want my life to be completely different in 2020? Do I want to start the decade off with getting my hormones in check? Get my hormones right? I know you do. I know that you want to burst into this next decade and feel incredible and amazing, and you can do that, and this program can help with that. So 1 week. You can think about it, or you can just dive in right now because you know you want to be a part of it, and that's going to be an amazing experience. Either way, it's available to you, and I cannot wait to get to know you better. I've loved connecting with everyone that's contacted me this week, and I'm so, so excited about this program. I may even dress up every time we meet. Who knows? But anyways, I'm going to let you go, enjoy your weekend, and really contemplate. Is this going to work for you? Is this the move that you need to make to have your life be what you've been wanting it to be for a long time now? All right, I'm here. If you have any questions, email me. There's a link on the webpage to, click in and email me. So please feel free to do that, and I will see you very soon. Thanks so much. Bye.